Hi there, welcome to the Smite Night podcast. When we first recorded this episode 1 of the podcast, we didn't expect it to go on for 2 hours, so what we've done is split it up into multiple episodes, which is why some of the episodes don't have introductions. So this is the introduction to this one. In this episode, we'll talk all about the mid-season patch notes and how we expect it to change the game. Well, I think on that point, we will move on to the mid-season patch notes. It's fundamentally going to change the game. I personally think for the better, because it takes away that what we were talking about before is the set builds. You know, every single person, every single role, you're getting boots second, maybe third if you go in stacking or something first. That's gone now. So now you're going straight into your items. So before we do that, though, we'll briefly mention, of course, the tie-in that they've got with Stranger Things, which I think that helps the community. Obviously, people who may have never played Smite might go, "Oh wow, I love Stranger Things. Smite's a free game. Here we go." So, does any of you ever watch Stranger Things? Is it something you guys have followed? Because I've seen season 1, but not any further than that.
I can attest to this because I have never seen Stranger Things, not once, not watched an episode, not seen anything of it. But my girlfriend, huge Stranger Things fan, and she does not really like Smite. She's not interested. I've shown it to her. She's not too keen. She does play games, not interested in Smite. She saw Stranger Things and she's like, "Oh my god, I want to try this. I want to see. You want to play as these monsters and everything coming through as 11 and stuff. It will hook in the sort of casual fan. If you are maybe considering Smite, but you like Stranger Things, and all of a sudden these two things hit together. It's like what you were saying, Nathan, where your gaming life can merge with your TV life, and everyone loves that. Like people love being able to see like a mishmash of their favorite things, and I think Stranger Things I would have to say it's bigger than Avatar. I would guess. You would say it's
Probably more popular.
Yeah, probably more generally popular than Avatar. So this is the biggest thing right now. This is the biggest thing Smite has done. They're probably gonna top this. They've unfortunately missed their chance. But like, can you imagine if a couple of years ago you have things like Game of Thrones coming in? Marvel would have been perfect. A year or two ago. It's like the potential now is sky is the limit. Absolutely, sky is the limit right now. I'm gonna be as hyped for the next tie-in as it will be when they announce a new Smash character. It gives me the same feeling where it's like, oh my god, they could do anything, so what are they going to do? And it's so exciting.
Yeah, I don't watch Stranger Things myself. I see so much hype about it on social media and cultural references, pop culture references. So I know how popular it is, but I know the effect that it can have. Obviously, Avatar was cool. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was cool. I just remembered Monster Cat was a thing, and I am a die-hard sort of like Monster Cat follower of music, and to have that sort of collaboration where I can just spam a global emote in game and have music that I actually like be played, or have it as a music theme or whatever, that for me was just the coolest thing. So I can imagine the effect it has on people, and obviously it links with the sales that they're going to get and whatnot. So
yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, I'm a big Stranger Things fan anyway. I love Stranger Things, but like, I'm just glad that it's shedding more of a light on Smite and bringing new fans in that maybe wouldn't even have thought about playing Smite, even if it's just going to play Arena or going to play Joust or going to play whatever. If it's not even Conquest, but at least they're bringing new people in, and that just means there's more for us to enjoy as well, because that just means that more companies will want to work with Smite if they're seeing the figures go up in sales and things like that. So yeah, it's something that's really really good, and I can't wait to actually start playing as like 11 on Scylla. Not that my Scylla is very good apparently after that AM game the other day. But we'll not
If
talk
you
about
could have
that.
one dream
No,
tie-in,
I can't wait for that.
one dream tie-in.
yeah, who's your dream
Oh,
tie-in?
Marvel, 100%.
Marvel, yeah. Judas,
Come back to me.
come back. Mine would be Marvel or Star Wars, because you better believe that I want to be rocking around that solo lane as, maybe Amaterasu with a lightsaber. Yeah, that's a thing. That needs to be a thing. Star Wars for me.
Yeah, I can vouch for Star Wars. Yeah, I think someone threw in Rick and Morty earlier, and I'm a big fan of Rick and Morty. So if they got something like that in, I'd be buying it the season pass straight away.
Oh, Max with a big call, a SpongeBob tie-in. They've already done some Nickelodeon, so I think that's certainly upcoming on the list. That would be some sick stuff.
Patrick Bacchus. There you go. Patrick Bacchus. There's your tie-in. I want a Patrick belly flop in, and yeah, that would be sick. So next point is the main changes to the map. So the first big part of the mid-season updates is the actual physical changes to the map. So they've added an extra area to the duo lane. It's like a small mini jungle, which is going to have a buff that you're going to fight for. I don't know if they've said what it does yet. I'm looking through the notes here. It doesn't actually say exactly what it does.
I don't know the exact phrasing or numbers of it, but the best way to describe it is it makes your towers stronger. So
Right.
I think it's more of increasing a defense rather than making them attack better. But yeah, I think it's just so the idea is, the way I've seen it stated, is if you know the other team is getting Fire Giant completely for free, you can run over to duo lane, take away that Draugr, and then it makes your Phoenix defense a little bit easier. It's not game changing, like it's not something that is a counter to Fire Giant, but it is something that it would help. You know, if you were really trying to play it perfectly, you need that to help contest with the Fire Giant siege. Because what you do find, especially with specifically an enhanced Fire Giant buff, it's so hard to defend a Phoenix. The fight is hard enough, but the Phoenix or whatever is just gone. So anything that makes things take a bit longer, a bit more commitment is needed. I think, yeah. So there we go. We have it in the chat: 7% power and 7% protections, stacking with nearby allies up to 3 times. So yeah, if you have a 3-man defense coming in, a couple of different numbers coming through, so I won't get too accurate on the numbers. But yeah, if you have a group defending a tower or Titan, it just generally is stronger, and I do think that's very, very helpful.
Yeah, it's strategic, isn't it? It's defensive. You could get it not just late game with Fire Giant sieges, but protecting your I suppose tier 2s and tier 1s early, and just allows you to sustain a bit of pressure if you're a late game comp. Say if you're a Kronos or a Jingwei ADC, for example, it's gonna mean that you're a bit safer with jungler ganks and so forth. It's gonna really, detest them from really going out there and out their way and diving you. So I suppose, yeah, it brings a new aspect to the game completely. It's not there to do all the time. It's one of those bigger objectives, isn't it?
Yeah, like a
But if you
Scorpion.
could pick it up for free, then absolutely, it seems worth doing. And then something which one of you may bring up, but I'm going to bring up now anyway, is what will that potentially do to Emperor's Armor as an item? Not often picked up now. I feel like, I don't know whether they've confirmed whether it stacks yet, but I'm assuming it will. And I'm assuming that that could be really potent.
Yeah, with the way that it works with Emperor's Armor increasing the attack speed of towers, it's now stronger percentage. So let's say 21% more damaging shots with also an attack speed boost from Emperor's Armor. Like, it is definitely, it makes a big difference. Now whether or not it is big enough, I'm not a maths guy. We'd have to leave that up to some of the more efficient people with that. Seeing in the chat, it does stack. Awesome. But yeah, like I'm a big fan of Emperor's Armor conceptually. I love things that are really situational, but if you're in that situation, it's awesome, and yeah, that's the exact sort of thing that I like to see.
Yeah, I think this is something that was raised. I think it was Brushy said it to me the other day, and this is such a niche thing to think of, but could it genuinely have an effect? Is now obviously that right side of duo lane, or left side, depending on which side you're on, is now a bit more open. The wall has been taken away to add this buff, and someone was saying, does Anher now have less things to impale into? is it now going to be a little bit trickier in that mid lane to impale somebody into a wall because there's an open space there now? And I was thinking that is such a weird thing to come up with, but it's right, I guess. He does have less things to impale into now. You have to be on it more with your pillar, and it's the little changes like that just, I don't know, I just love the nuances of something as small as that making even a tiniest little bit of difference.
I do love you giving credit to Brushy for that, because it's a conversation that I had with you, Kara. That was something I pointed out. So yeah, thanks for saying it was a little bit weird. But no, yeah, that's how I like to think about stuff. It's a small change like that. Yeah, honestly, by definition, Anhur has a little bit less value now. Now, is it enough to pull him out of the meta? Probably not. I think Anhur is about as strong as he was, especially if you can rush Ichevol now. And that's stacking with his passive so well. I don't think Anhur gets completely shut down by that, but a little edge like that, yeah, it really does make a difference. Thor, that Tectonic Rift, it's a lot harder to completely lock someone in now. Things like that do actually make a really, really big difference. Camiage pointing out in the chat, Hu Yi, there's now a whole other area you can ricochet around, and just like I say, something like that, I love. A little change and really coming up with the little permutations and things that it really affects. And I think we're only going to see more of that as the season progresses. Do we still have Apple around? By the way? There he is. Yeah,
I am here. Sorry, I had a bit of an internet issue there. I don't know if anyone really picked up on it. I do like the whole Draugr side of the map, as you all explained. Like, there is a lot of kind of like different. It affects different gods, but I think it's just going to turn like a pyromancer where teams aren't overly fighting over it. Like, yeah, you'll go and you'll maybe have like a small skirmish, but you'll not have like a big, massive team fight breakout over it. But I really like, again, going back to our previous point, that like Smite game high res are just keeping it really fresh, and I really like that aspect. The next time the next patch comes around, like the mid season patch, they'll change the map again. They could take the Draugr out and put it on the solo lane side of the map and see how that works and things like that. Like, obviously that wouldn't be great, but at the same time, like I like how they're keeping it really fresh, and I think that the Draugrs, it's a good addition, but I don't think it'll be as big as what everyone's kind of maybe expecting it to be.
Yeah. So next point, before we move on to the big one, because there's two more changes to the map that have happened. I'm going to go with the smallest one first, because I think this will be a quick one. And there's over in solo lane, there is now a physical change to the map. So currently, where if you're going from your own lane to totem, there's one entrance that's right in the middle of the lane. I think they're splitting that now, and they're putting something in the middle, and there's going to be an entrance to it either side. So a little bit safer to get to totem, I guess. You can now go from sort of three quarters up your own lane, as opposed to having to go to the middle. Not a big change, but it's something else to fight over, because I believe there's going to be a monster there to fight. Have I read that right? There's something.
That's on the duo side for certain.
So they've split. There's two now XP camps on the solo side as well, either side of the totem. So it's like right beside the blue buff. So,
okay.
So there's more XP for the solo laner as well, which is going to be kind of
Solos didn't need more farm.
Exactly.
No way.
Exactly. There was no more farm needed in the solo lane. Then
also
they've added more farm.
Yeah, more junglers in that lane now. Thanks. More. I like being left alone in solo.
That's a key point, though. To be fair.
So added more farm to the ADC side of the map as well, as if they needed more farms. So
Poor mid laners. You're gonna be level 10 after 20 minutes at this rate.
Exactly. It's literally just gonna be like disgusting, because mid laners are getting all of their XP taken from the jungler and the support anyway. So
does anyone know?
Gonna have two level 20 side lanes coming in, and at level 12 mid laner, it's gonna get one shot by solo. It's gonna be so fun.
Does anyone remember where the red buff used to be way back when? Does anyone know this? Can anyone guess? If you didn't play in the original seasons,
back camps, was it not?
No, that's even further away. I'm not certain if it was in the very first map, but I know in the second map, the one without the side lanes, it was actually right beside. Okay, imagine if you're in mid, and on your left side where the mid camps are, there was a big wall, and there was your red buff. It was right there, and it was quite far away, so it was hard to steal from the other side. But the maps weren't perfectly symmetrical then, so red buff on your side was on the opposite side of the jungle to red buff for the other team. And yeah, the red buff was so free for the mid lane. You could just walk in, pick it up whenever you felt like. You wouldn't miss a wave because you didn't have to go anywhere. Whereas these days, mid in particular, I think, has a lot more work to do when it comes to the jungle, because you have to be so aware of the whole mid 3v3 for a start. You need to know not only where your teammates are, but where the enemy is, 3 members of the enemy. You've also got to be careful on where, when do you go for your red buff? Because it's still possible to miss a wave there, and you don't want to be falling behind unnecessarily. And with now extra camps on the left, extra camps on the right, like, mid's been shafted. Like, generally. Yeah, mid camps are quite valuable. They always have been valuable. But they're so difficult to control without your team. A mid on his own, even if your team's winning, going into mid camps, they don't die in one ability. You are leaving yourself exposed a bit, and for most assassins to leap over that wall probably and get on top of you, it's so tough to be a mid laner right now. I don't really fault anyone who decides to commit to that for their league games.
That's why I'm safe in solo, me. No one bothers me over there. But I think that's a good example of a small change that you might think might be quite innocuous, but actually could have quite a big effect. Because at the moment, solo mostly gets left alone because there's not much in that jungle for the jungler to come over there. Once they've got their yellow and the blue can safely be taken by the solo lane, is it worth coming all that way over 30 seconds just for 2 mid harpies? Usually not really. But now there's an extra XP camp, or 2 extra XP camps if the enemy solo laner dies. So now, is the jungler going to be spending a lot more time in solo, meaning they're going to be less in the right side of the jungle? Because if you're a jungler at the moment, I'd say predominantly you spend your time in the duo side of the jungle because there's more for you there. There's red, there's purple, there's oracles, there's gold fury. In the early stage of the game, in the solo side of the jungle, you've only got really the blue, and you're not going to go for pyromancer and fire giant that early. So is that now going to switch the focus for the jungler? Maybe, and that could be a big change. I think.
I hope it does, man. In a ranked game, anyway. But obviously in comp as well. If you get that solo laner ahead and they rotate to mid early, changes the team dynamic completely. You get a 4v3 between the jungler, solo, mid, and support, and you can, knock out all 3 of the opposition and then rotate for a gold fury. I just feel like getting the solo ahead can be so undervalued sometimes. Of course, in some matchups, for example, Wukong tier is very hard to enable your solo laner to do that, but obviously we're going to see what's the meta and what's being picked now. But in the ages of Cuchulainn and King Arthur, where there's the possibility they're less safe, they're more aggressive, that they could fall behind. Yeah, man, ganking solo needs to be the way forward. Honestly,
It doesn't.
It's not a hot take, but
Especially with tank boots getting taken out of the meta as well. It's going to be so much easier to gank a solo laner earlier in the game. You're ganking a solo laner at 5 minutes and have tank boots online, and they're practically unkillable. So yeah, having like tank boots out of the meta definitely is helping. But you could see it go to like a season 4 meta where the jungler and the solo are practically playing lane together the whole game for the first 15 minutes because there's so much farm on that side of the map. You never know. We'll need to see how the pros play it and how teams decide to play it.
Yeah. So those of you who are watching the Twitch stream visually will notice that we've had a new face join the party. This is, of course,
Apple
the
looks a bit
ADC for the
different.
Relentless Sellers.
Doug is in the house. What's up?
Doug is in the house. So yeah, he has jumped in just at the right time. We're just talking about the Season 8 changes. He's here, ADC for the Zealous, so welcome DonDuug. Just in time to talk about the support buff. I think this is the biggest map change that they've made so far, because this can have so many effects. I mean, the effect of the buff, I've got it up here, is that it will not allow your allies' buffs to expire while it's up. But I'm assuming as long as you remain close to them. Now, this is a bit of a difficult one because you have to time when you're picking it up. There's no point dropping this at the same time as you're dropping red because you're getting no effect from it. So it takes a little bit of strategic thinking about when this starts to get dropped, and you have to be timed rotations, and maybe you might be faced with the possibility of, are we going to lose a wave to go and get this buff, meaning I've got extra power for the next 180 seconds. So how is this going to affect mid? Because we've got 2 mid laners in the party here, and this is probably the biggest change you guys are going to get, because of course you want the support buff on mid. It's not going to be wasted on solo. It's not going to be wasted on ADC.
I will jump in just to let you know as well, Kara, because I've seen a lot of discussion over when do you get the buff, how do you time it correctly. But the way it works, is when you pick up the green buff and you stand near someone with, let's say, the purple buff, the timer on the purple buff will freeze. So it's not that it actually gets, it doesn't hit 0 and then not go away. It actually freezes the timer for the amount of time that you're nearby. So it almost works better than what you were talking about, because now you can run over to dual lane, pause the timer for, let's say, 20, 30 seconds, then run to mid, pause that timer as well. And yeah, it can extend the buff long enough so that you still have the buff for when, say, the next purple spawns. And that can make a hell of a difference.
Scenario sounds like the support getting a hell of a lot of XP as well.
Yeah.
Just going and standing beside their mid, standing beside their ADC. The support could end up being huge running about if they're doing that. So that's always fun as
I
well.
don't even want to be selfish here. I don't want to be selfish. I don't want the support to be near me. I'm thinking of the potential of the support just running around with the jungler and a jungler having a perma speed buff.
Exactly.
I think that just, the rotations across the map are going to be
Double
phenomenal,
jungle
really.
gets their cat back in the support role and just double jungle, and that's the meta I want to see, to be honest.
Double jungle.
Double jungle was good fun. I remember
Yeah.
that. Doug, we'll throw this to you as well. How big of an effect do you think this green buff will be overall?
I don't think it's gonna matter at all, man. I don't think it's gonna do much. It's a little bit, I think, it's like what they're doing with they're nerfing all the base damages on pen and etc. It's just like to scale down the early penetration and stuff. And I think that the new support buff is just literally to make them be able to stay alive due to the no boots. That's the only reason I think David put it there. Just to make them more valuable in the early game, because they're pretty much going to be useless if you can go full pen early with no boots. It's like just going to blow them up. I think that's the only reason they put it there.
I've seen some pros on Twitter who've played the PTS server mention that it's very difficult for supports early because they have no defense now with boots missing. So someone like Fafnir with his passive giving him bonus protections early on is going to potentially rise up in the meta a little bit, which I'd like to see, actually. I think Fafnir is an underplayed god, and certainly Brushy likes his Fafnir, so it would be good to see him rise up from the other Guardians, I guess. But I think it potentially offers the chance to, at the moment, we were talking before about a variation in the game. I think one thing that remains quite fixed at the moment is the Guardian stays with ADC till level 5, 6, 7, and then disappears and goes to mid lane. But now, does it offer the opportunity for, if someone is behind in lane, the Guardian will go to that lane and say, "I'll sit with you, and you can keep your buff"? And does it allow people who are maybe behind to be babysat back to where they were without worrying about we're taking the Guardian away from somewhere else?
I think the current thing that they're changing with removing the boots, I think it's opening a lot of new play potentials in Smite. It's a thing that's never been done before. It's a thing that's never been done in a MOBA. I think they're opening a lot of doors to, like, they tried earlier to try to explore new metas and like remove crit or add crit, anti-crit items and stuff like that. I think this is probably the biggest change that they're actually making that can affect the meta like quite huge, because now they're trying to get new things in, like the buff to make support be able to do plays, and you don't need to get boosts no more, so you can literally draft your own start in the beginning now. Like Apple mentioned, Circuit support can come back now because you're going to blow a lot more damage. You can start stacking earlier. I think this is probably going to be the hardest meta to predict so far that's been in Smite, I think. Like, I think it's really difficult to actually know what the hell is going on, It's really tough to say.
It's gonna be I think it's gonna be quite similar to like the start of Season 8, where like people just didn't know what meta to play. Like, especially like when you're watching SPL, like you had players pulling out John Kui first week and playing random picks in mid, random picks in solo. I think this mid-season patch is really just gonna. It's almost like a grenade's been dropped, and all as well. The SPL this week, or it starts this week, is played on for the patch, and then the second week is played after the mid-season patch.
Oh wow!
They've only 4 days, or no, because it starts on the Thursday. They've the Tuesday that the patch comes out and the Wednesday to practice on the mid-season patch. And on
That's
Thursday,
that,
SPL
that,
starts.
that's what's so great as well, because you don't need to reinvent the wheel here. You just sit and wait until the pros play it and then just try it out. Like, that's the only thing you need to do.
personally.
This is what
SPL
they do.
effect is gonna take precedent.
Yeah. This is what they do. They sit down and they draft these things. You know, don't need to do anything else. Just wait for them to do anything, and
Yeah,
just take it from there, because that's what they do. So it's kind of great like that. But it's gonna be interesting, because I think it's a lot more variation in the starter, like in the starter items, the way you start the game. Pressure points are gonna end up changing. You know, where to pressure the game, when you get peaks and caps and stuff like that, and carries, and everything's gonna change. So it's either going to slow down or it's going to speed up, and I have a feeling it's going to speed up a little bit. And like Soul, for example, or basically is now going to get a lot more pressure. Like those kind of characters are going to jump up a notch, you know, which is kind of fun.
Exactly, and obviously like the main thing's the boots, but like you also have relic changes as well. Like you have meditation getting changed, which I think meditation's going to be really, really good now. I know it's like that newbie item, but the change to it's really good. Sunder, there's just going to be busted. Like it wasn't busted already, but it's busted even
You
more
need to
now
hit
because
it
you
2
get
times,
2
bro.
fires of it.
You need to hit
You
it
still
2
get
times,
70.
bro.
No, but it still has a true damage thing on it as well. Like one shot of it takes like true damage.
Yeah, so that
Like,
was the
it's
next
mad,
point
and
that we were
Bracer
going to
as
go on
well,
to,
for example, as well.
Yeah.
was the changes to the relics. So we'll start with meditation. Now, obviously, it used to heal a negligible amount of health and mana, and I think you're right. It was seen as a newbie item. I think people who just start the game and see a relic that says, "Oh, it heals your allies and stuff," you think, "Oh, that's pretty useful." But in reality, we all know that it's not really. The amount it heals at top level, level 20 even, is negligible. But now it heals percentage health as a tick.
Percentage missing health.
Yeah, percentage of missing health, and it's tick healing. And then the upgraded state reduces cooldowns. Now, that isn't bad, to be fair. I still think it may be a niche pick, and I still think it won't quite be a must pick, because I still think beads and other relics like blink and stuff will serve you better. But is it viable now? Is it? I mean, it's definitely better. Can you see a place
I'm
for
gonna
it?
For what,
I'm gonna
meditation?
jump in. I think it's niche. Niche is perfect. I think gods like, I don't know, you're countering a execute god, you're countering a Thanatos that's just jumping into the sky, or an Alquang that could potentially be in the jungle, and you have someone in Exi threshold. If it's gonna heal percentage of missing health, then the quick, I don't know how long it's gonna be. Let's say 2 seconds over the ticks to get them out of execute threshold. That could be quite huge. But besides that, not too sure what its viability is. I don't know. We'll have to see. It's interesting for sure.
Are we talking about meditation here?
Yeah.
Yeah. How? So it's about it's giving you health back on missing health, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have 2.5k health. It's gonna heal you 125 per tick times 5. Or times 4. The item is garbage. It's still gonna be garbage.
Yeah.
It's gonna heal you for 100. It's gonna heal you
It's also
for 500.
reducing cooldowns as well. I think
Yeah, it
I
gives,
think
yeah.
in the middle of a team fight, your support pops it. You're not gonna be annoyed at him popping it.
Yeah,
Getting
I
your
think
cooldowns reduced, and you're getting 5% of your missing health bumped up every 4 seconds.
Yeah, I
I'm gonna
think
be annoyed at
The
someone
issue,
popping it.
the issue with meditation though is like, would you rather have your support having a Sunder or meditation? Because the meditation still has a 160-second cooldown. You know,
I think
it's still like
The-
it's really hard to, especially in comp play. I think in ranked you can pull it off. It's still a mediocre item, but I think like in comp play, I don't think you'll be able to actually utilize on it too well. The only thing that's good about it is the cooldowns, but I still think it's not great.
I think if you
Yeah,
take it
so-
where the cooldown, sorry, Kara,
No,
if
go
the
ahead.
cooldowns is the strength of it, right? So let's say you were picking meditation for the upgraded version with the cooldown specifically, because that's, probably its main strength. How does that compare to Belt of Frenzy? Belt of Frenzy doesn't get picked up too much, so would you rather have multiple shots, or would you rather they all do a bit more damage? I don't know how the numbers line up with that, but that is the clearest sort of comparison you can make. And I'm just trying to think if there's any god that you'd rather cast their ability twice than have it do. I know it doesn't do double, but let's say have it do double damage. You know, Giannis, when he had, if you combine it with the Staff of Merthin, that probably doesn't stack either. So then you'd probably say you want a Belt of Frenzy instead. That new Staff of Merthin, by the way, I know we haven't talked about it yet. That is not getting through.
Already got nerfed.
Already got nerfed. Yeah, there we go.
Already
Yeah,
got
there was no way that was getting through as it was. I think anyone who's ever played Smite who read that just went, "This is ridiculous," you know.
Yeah, Meriden had to go.
Merthin was a bit of a fun thing to use for me. I know it came like the meta pick for Janus, but I just like building it on Sobek and plucking someone one way, spinning around and plucking them the other way. Like that's just how I like to use it. But yeah, now probably. Would you say that's the strongest item like ever? Like I can't think of anything that did something as crazy.
I saw
as
that and thought, so I could be hit by Hebo's 1-2 ultimate 1-2-1-2 within 8 seconds. Awesome. Yeah, I'm dead, no matter who I am. Or thank you, Irez.
I was watching a video about this the other day as well, and the Hebo was able to put out more shots. Able to put out 3 of his water cannons while the first one was still casting. Something stupid with that new staff of Meriden. Like it was so fucking stupid. Like I don't know. Like I like the concept, but it's just not. It just was never gonna work.
It's been all right.
Yeah, it's like, is this Conquest or is this Game of the Day, really?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
that's like a Game of the Day thing. They just amp the cooldown to maximum and have fun with it. Just go play.
Yeah. So moving on to the next one, we've got Bracer of Undoing has just been downright removed from the game. Anyone going to miss that? I don't think I've bought it once in season 8.
I tried it and I realized, wow, this is garbage.
Yeah. No place
to
to
it's good in
duel,
duel,
really,
man.
isn't it?
It's alright in duel. You can play it in duel and you can flex it in duel. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
If you're a duel man.
That's really it.
Yeah, I like I said, I don't think I bought it once in season 8. So the next one, and this is the big one. This is the whole mid-season thing, isn't it? Boots gone. Elixir of Speed gone. Now,
that was great.
I personally, so I'll start off. I personally think this is a really good change for the game. We were speaking earlier on in the podcast about, predictable builds and variation. Now, Boots was always a second item pick. Doesn't matter who you're playing. Doesn't matter what role. Okay, I say maybe if you're getting stacking first, you might go, Transcendence or whatever. But then it was going to be Boots. Because if you didn't, you fell behind. Whereas now, you can build whatever you want. So it has completely opened up the builds for every single god in every single role. And then you look at who does this potentially affect the most. People with movement speed abilities, maybe now coming to the front of the meta. Someone like Rat, who is naturally quicker than everyone anyway. Getting ahead early as a jungler means you're now...
Kara, if you don't build Boots on Rat, then you're a twat.
Well, he naturally had, didn't he? He had naturally had the movement speed, whereas now it's been reduced, but he's still naturally quicker than everyone else. So if Rat gets ahead, he is now a lot quicker than everyone else. So Rat in jungle, is that potentially going to come to the front? Because if he can get a couple of levels ahead of his jungler, he's moving around the map quicker. So we'll start with you,
Amma as well, because of her passive.
Yes, absolutely.
Amma's going to be ridiculous, I think.
You're banging that Amma drum, aren't you? You really want Amma to be...
Yeah.
So
I'll go back to solo lane.
I'll start with you as someone in the mid lane. How is Boots going to affect you? What is it going to do for your gods? Is Cuchulainn now going to be viable again with his movement speed buff?
I think so with this whole movement speed thing dropping away, and those gods that do have an increased movement speed inherent to their kit, those gods are going to have a boost, but only at the very, very beginning, because they will just have mini boots, with the way that it scales percentagely. I do think, though, that level difference is now huge. That first, is it 7 levels, I think, before you finish boots? Those first few levels, if you fall behind 2 levels, they are faster than you. And you're in danger now, and we've already seen in league games, SPL, people don't really seem to be aware of how dangerous one level is. I've seen I'm sorry about this one. Truth, if you're watching still, I'm going to call you out on this one. Truth picked a Kronos into a Chiron in the Hunter role. Chiron hits level 2, gets his giddy up, dead. Immediately. Because that one minion hitting over, and that slight level lead, just it sets up a kill. like that. There is now kill potential for one player, and when you see, when just movement speed is now inherent to your levels, I think that makes a big difference. I think any sort of late game hyper carry style gods, you got your Freya, Kali, Mercury, those guys who really hit hard late game, they now have basically an extra item ahead of what they were. That the time that they needed is now smaller. Chronos, as already mentioned, things like that will really start to make a difference, and I think that is where you will see the boots change really shine. I think most people's initial reaction will be to go for stacking items, right? You're talking Book of Thoth, Transcendence, those expensive or more expensive stacking items. But I'll hit you with the counterpoint. Let's say in the Hunter lane, you can now rush, let's say, Atalanta's Bow, which gives you movement speed. So if you are going for this slow sort of stacking build, and someone's coming at you with an Echovol, an Atalanta's Bow, they are suddenly power spiking way earlier than you, and in a way that's stronger than ever.
Like I say, if you get a early level lead on that god, the combination of the passive and then the movement speed per level for the first 7 levels, then that god's going to be so potent. And I mean, I can play Chiron in the mid as well. You can play Hunters in the mid. You can play Skadi, etc., etc. And I just think the pressure across the map for the early 7 levels, I'm making it out to be such a big deal. I don't know whether it will be in reality, but I just think it offers a lot more kill potential if you do get that early level or 2 across the map everywhere. And as a meta and the god pool as a whole, I think it opens the game a lot up. We talked about early game gods potentially being better now. We're talking about late game gods with build pass potentially being better now, Freya, Kali, etc. So it's open ended. Honestly, we've said it before. We're gonna probably say it again a number of times before the podcast ends, but no one can really predict what's gonna happen, what's gonna be meta. It's gonna be pretty chaotic.
Completely agree. And I don't think anyone can really decide whether moving boots is going to give carries much damage or it's going to make tanks too tanky. Yeah, because like with tanks, you can just pick up a spectral now whenever you want. If someone's going crit, you can just kind of like counter build a lot easier now with no boots, because you have to do is really have a slot for your starter, and even then, like solo laners aren't even picking up like an upgraded starter and going with the 6th item. So just having 6 items, it means maybe solos can start to go more damage and start to pick up the likes of Heartseeker or anything like that, and solos are going to be doing more damage. So I think anyone really knows what's going to happen, but I'm really looking forward to it. All the changes I think have been really good for mid-season.
Yeah, I agree. So I've got the full patch notes here. There's obviously so many changes, and I think to go through each one individually we'll be here till 12 o'clock tonight. So we'll pick out some of the highlights. So one of the big ones here, and this is for an ADC, is Berserker Shield can now no longer be bought on Hunters. I think we saw quite a few people buying this in hunting lane and having early protections, pen, and everything else that you need, attack speed. Don, as an ADC, is this going to make a big effect to you? Is it something you went down, Berserker Shield? Were you an Anher Berserker builder?
Yes, absolutely. It was fantastic, but it was also the most painful item to play against.
Yeah.
Because whoever got it first basically won lane until you got it, and then they had an extra item after you got it if you fell behind. So I just praise the Lord that they actually didn't let Hunters buy that.
Yeah.
Makes a lot more fun. But it's gonna give you that Erlang Shen jungle, which is also painful.
Yeah.
It's gonna bring back those kind of things.
Yeah, he fell off a little bit at the start.
Yeah.
I think there's quite a few people playing Erlang Shen Season 8 at the start.
Shout out to my jungler, man.
It disappeared a little bit. It's a shame because I like a bit of Erlang Shen. Another big change, one that an item I think does not get bought enough, Shogun's Kasari. They've taken away the crowd control, but they've given health, and they've increased the attack speed aura from 25 to 30%. Now, I don't understand why more people don't buy this. I think this is a brilliant item, because when you're taking an objective, everyone there, you're killing it quicker. You're killing it 30% quicker. Your mages are not going to buy attack speed. Your warriors are not going to buy attack speed. So why not? Is this now going to be an item that gets picked up a lot more?
It's dependent on what you're playing. I think if you have a standard comp with a, let's say you get like a Chiron and you have a regular mid and you have something like a wrath jungle or something like that. It's just like I don't think it's necessary. But if you're playing a soul mid and then you got like a hunter, and you're playing a solo laner, whatever, Bellona or some crazy like that, I think you need to benefit the item. It's got good stats for sure. It's a good statted item and it does a lot for the team when you get it up. But I think you need at least one other character to proc it from except the hunter, you know. So if you get a soul, if you have a soul mid and you get a hunter, which benefits from attack speed, every hunter does, but then you can, it's probably a lot more value in it than just getting it just to get the attack speed, you know. So, but I think it's a sick item though, honestly. It's a good item.
Yep.
I like the
It
item.
goes back to my point about auto attack kind of solo laners. There, we're going to see a lot more of that, and we haven't got to it yet. But they've buffed Death's Toll as well, and Death's Toll I think is going to be
Amen,
really viable in the
Yeah,
solo
the
lane
death
now
up
as
is going to
well.
back up.
Yeah, so like Death's Toll is going to be more viable in the solo lane, and you're going to see a lot more auto attackers, the likes of your Ballonas. Osiris's will probably go back to that auto attack build. Amaterasu. So it's not going to be fun. In solo lane.
I can't wait. So we've got a couple of items here that have had a small change, nothing drastic. I'll just touch upon them briefly, and if anyone wants to make a comment on any of these, then feel free. So we've got Mystical Mail has now changed from its passive tick damage of 40 to 30 plus 1 per level. So obviously that'll max out at 50. So it's going to be less useful early, but obviously have more of an effect later on. We have Wing Blade, which has lost crowd control reduction from 20 to 10%. And then the other one that I saw that was only a small change was Serrated Edge has got an increase of 10 power from 25 to 35. Anyone want to jump in on any of those? Think it's going to make much of a difference or something that needed to happen?
Mystical
Not
Mail.
any.
I must touch on that.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I just feel like with the removal of the boots, if you have a Kukulkan rushing that, the aura damage is just going to be way too potent. So I think they've preempted that change. They've nerfed Kukulkan. They've changed, because it's a change, isn't it? They've changed Mystical Mail, so it's worse early and better late, which makes it interesting. I don't know whether that makes it more viable overall for other gods, but I think that's a Kukulkan specific change, because some Kukulkans, you know, obviously this stoner guy is popular, etc., but straight after booze, I have seen some pick up that Mystical
I
Mail.
think the one that we didn't really touch on was Mannequins up there.
Yes.
Mannequins is gonna be a lot more viable in the jungle now as well. Obviously it's you get 5% of your physical or magical power back as health every time you clear a camp. I think it's going to be a really strong item, and as Doug said as well, like it's with Berserk getting back into the meta, you know, you're probably going to see a lot more Erlang with Mannequins and probably just rushing straight into Berserkers as well. And I like the change for Mannequins, and I like that they're trying to bring auto attackers back into the meta as well.
Yep.
You know, when was the last time I had a real auto attack meta? It takes a lot more skill to play with attack gods as well, and I think it's making that skill gap even bigger. What it was, you know, the ceiling for players now is going to be a lot higher, and it's going to be fun. Like
It's definitely the hardest role to play. I agree. ADC and left clicking and holding and making autos. It's tough, man. It's tough business.
So
Does this make Gilgamesh even better?
Oh, don't even start on Gilgamesh.
Makes your AMC better, Nathan. That's what it does.
Yeah.
Makes your AMC broken.
So there's a few others that have had small changes. Again, nothing too drastic. So there's a few small cost changes. There's a small increase in power on a couple, but I don't think there's anything that we probably haven't already touched upon on how it's going to change. So what we'll move on to now is the god changes. So quite a few gods have had a buff. I don't think there was anyone who really got nerfed in this mid-season patch notes except King Arthur and Kukulkan, but we'll touch on that in a second. So Amaterasu has had a buff. So she has now got increased base damage on her Dazzling Offensive, and she's also got increased charge gain from both doing damage and taking damage. I mean, she'll be able to charge a little bit more quickly. As someone who likes a bit of Amaterasu, happy to see these changes come in, APO?
Because obviously this is a the buff on her ult is a revert of what they nerfed in Season 7.
Yeah.
Where Amma was literally in the solo lane and she was getting the late game and just one-shotting backliners. And and that was fun. Obviously, when you're a solo laner, you love the one-shot backliners. So, um, I like this. I think she's going to be really, really good again.
Hopefully
Obviously,
so.
she's gonna. I think she's going to be a lot easier to play in the early game as well with the removal of boots, because you're going to be able to get items on quicker to be able to clear wave, because that's really our one struggle in the early games, actually getting a wave clear until about level 10 or so. So
Yeah.
I really like this change.
So this is a god change that some would say was needed, but I'm going to throw this question to Don. Artemis, increased base damage on her trap and a decreased cooldown, and she's got increased movement speed and cooldown on her steroid. Is this enough to save Artemis from the depths of the tier list in the Hunter lane?
Man, Artemis is good, man. I think she was good from the beginning after she got that slow immunity on the 2. She was alright. She's alright. Now she's I mean the thing with Artemis though is like she's one of those hunters that get like this sitting duck kind of feeling
Yeah.
too, like when you're playing in her comp, it's like if you want to kill her, you're going to kill her type of thing, regardless of what you do, because she has no leap, she has no jump. The thing with Artemis though is that whenever you get a slight lead, or whenever you don't get bullet hard in lane and you don't get camped on cooldown, and you actually get to play an even early game, you can benefit a lot with Artemis, because that CC chain that she's got is absolutely massive. And if you pull it out, you saw Sapman do it in SPL, and I know people complain about it, like him feeding and playing like shit and all this, but I honestly think that he played it perfectly, because the way, like, it's an Ares kind of, you bait all the relics, and if they don't use the relics, then they're just gonna get dove and die.
Yeah.
She does a lot of damage, but she's also kind of a supportive hunter, which can provide a lot of team play. And I think she has that Heimdall feeling without the teleport, where she has to sit behind her front line. She doesn't have that play potential, but with some buffs on her, I think she's gonna be good. I think she was good even from the beginning. Just hard to fit her into a comp, especially when you have this pressure meta going on.
Yeah.
Because she's gonna get pressured and it's rough.
Yeah, I agree. I've always been a big fan of Artemis, but obviously, yeah, she is quite vulnerable sometimes. So the next two we're going to bundle together because they're both mid laners, and this is going to go to Nathan, our resident mid laner, and Apo as well. I guess you're a mid laner now too, now that you've changed. So Baba Yaga has got a decreased cooldown from her blast off, which is obviously her escape. She gets increased shielding when she's ulting, and there's an increased knockback strength on her ultimate as well. And then Baron Samedi increases the amount of hysteria that he applies with his basic attacks, and his vivid gaze. And his consigned spirits, which is obviously a big source of damage for him, is now having a decreased cooldown as well. So, is Baba Yaga, is Baron Samedi gonna jump to the front of the meta with these changes, or is it just something that they needed, or is it something that you perhaps think they were actually okay where they were? Start with you, Nathan.
Baron Samedi's so interesting. I don't know whether that's going to be a big enough change to bring him to the front of the meta. I don't see him as a mid laner personally. I see him as, don't know whether you would say solo tank or whatnot, but situationally can be alright. I do think that he needed buffs, so I'm glad to see it. I'm not opposed to it at all. Baba Yaga, how many times do they need to buff that god? I personally disagree with it. I think she was fair where she was.
Yeah.
She's one of those safe mid laners with an escape. It can be cancelled if someone interrupts her leap. Then it can be outplayed. But there's not many mid laners that are safe with her with the escape. But then they have this incredible ult, which they're now buffing as well. And if you go the right build path on her, I think she's really potent. She sprays out damage. You save up another 2 in your potion slot, and you can fire 2 of her potions. And then the line ability, I know it can be a bit random. There's a bit of a random aspect to the god. However, I think we're going to see an SPL, man.
Yeah.
It's not a hot take again, because I think if you look at that god and everything that Smite have given to her, they're pushing her to the forefront. of some sort of level of play.
They
There
they
must
just
be
want her to be
some
the best god.
improvements in the win rate of that god.
Want her to be the best god in
Yeah,
the game. Like
I
that's what it is. Ever since she's been released, she just gets buffed and buffed and buffed and buffed, and all of a sudden she's just going to be this absolute tank on the map.
had
And
she
no
been
one can
nerfed?
stop.
Honestly, like the amount of buffs, this is incredible.
So we've got a couple more slight changes. Again, none that I think are going to make a huge amount of difference. So there's a small change to Hachiman, a small change to Hades, just a 1 second decrease on his cooldown. But I think the gods that were most affected by this mid-season change, and I think everyone has been crying out for this. As a solo laner, I was crying out for it for myself. Nerfs to Cucullin, nerfs to King Arthur, nerfs to Stone of Gaia, nerfs to Mystical Male. Have we finally got rid of King Arthur and Cucullin being in every game with the same first 3 items of Guardian Boots, Gaia, Mystical Male? Are we finally going to see some variation in the solo lane? Is it time?
I think Cucullin will never be out of meta. I think Cucullin's just always going to be like he's like Anhur of the solo lane, where he's just going to be good no matter what the meta is in solo. Arthur nerfs are quite harsh, so I can't see Arthur staying for too long. Wukong, I think's iffy as well, but I think that this is all just going towards this auto attack meta that they're trying to build.
I agree. I think as someone who's played solo lane predominantly throughout season 8, Cucullin and King Arthur were just your opponents so much of the time because it was such a safe, easy picks. And those items as well, Gaia and Mystical Male, you buy into them both. You've got the physical protections against your opponent, you've got the sustain against your opponent, and it made it very difficult to play gods who struggle early game in the solo lane. People like Amaterasu, who don't have to clear and basically just have to surrender the first 5 levels under tower because your opponent can clear waves very quickly and you're stuck underneath, getting reduced gold, and you're basically playing from behind. I'm glad the changes have come in. I think they were needed on both of those gods because you want to freshen it up in the solo lane. You don't want 60% of your games to have those 2 gods in it with those exact builds as well. So maybe this is the time. Maybe we are going to see something different.
Also, there's Mulan as well is getting another buff. Like this god is already broken if you know how to play her, and he's getting yet another buff. And yeah, they're doing to Mulan what they're doing to Baba, where they're just buffing her until she's the best god in the game. Like it's all to do to those 2 gods. Buff.
Yeah, I think people are not just tired. I think people are forgetting what other matchups are like. You know, when's the last time you played Erlang Shen in the solo lane? It's
Season
just
6.
incredible. I think Cthulhu will make a rise personally.
Yeah, I think we'll see a lot more. We'll see a lot more magical solo laners as well. I think we'll see our Cerberuses or all of the guardians that can play solo quite well. I don't think we'll see any mages. We'll maybe get a Changa, but I can't see it. I can't really see that, to be fair.
Yeah, Changa's
I'll
a pain.
pick a Zhongqi and lose again.
So I think we've got probably a couple more we'll just touch upon before we move on, because I am wary of time. We obviously have spoke a lot longer than we thought this was going to go on for. So Odin has had a decent buff. I've played quite a bit of Odin myself. I do like Odin. He's got decreased cooldown on both his lunge and Raven Shout, and then increased physical scaling on his spear as well. So as a solo, and I'm pretty happy to see those come in. I think Odin is a lot of fun. And then the other one I wanted to mention was where has it gone? So Yamoja has had quite a big change, hasn't she?
Yes. Yeah.
So do we have any support mains who want to touch upon the changes to Yamoja?
I'm not.
Is there any support in here?
I'm not a support main, but I've played plenty of support and I've looked into it. So I was curious about Yamoja specifically because like they've said, it was all about optimizing the amount of Omi you had because with no cooldowns like that, you just needed to get as much mana and MP5 as you could, because that's, if you have the abilities, that's straight up when Yamoja was strong, because she's got this ability to spam abilities, so that's when she would do it. With this change, it sort of calms her down and makes it a bit more predictable. You don't need to look at the build or pay much attention to the build. You know how much Omi she's going to have now. They've made it more consistent. And I think keeping things consistent is always pretty good, because now you can build whatever you want on your Moja, but you still know how much Omi you're going to have. Now, obviously, you can optimize it a bit better. With having mana and MP5 converted to health, there are some items out there that give a lot of mana, and you can find yourself being very, very healthy. And I think it's a good change for the game. I think it's a slight nerf, if I was being honest. I think overall, her being tankier is good. Not having as much Omi is not as good. So taking away from her strengths but adding to her weaknesses, it's not a bad change. But overall, I would say it's a bit of a nerf. Yeah.
She's always been that god though that the low levels people don't know how to play her properly, so she's just kind of like a healer. And when you watch her play it at like a high level, like
She's the best god
ridiculous. So I don't. Yeah, she's literally the best god in the game. So I think this nerf kind of, well, it's like a nerf slash a buff. Some of it's been buffed, some of it's been nerfed. I think that kind of applies to the higher level teams and
Yes.
things like that. So I don't think this will affect so much the ranked player, the casual player, but it's really going to affect the higher end type of games. The one question that it did have for Doug, obviously we've went through quite a lot of the changes there and stuff. Do you think we'll see a lot more Mia JDCs, like so the Oleron, like Oleron got a buff and Freya and things like that? What do you think, Doug? Muted.
Doug, yeah, I
Doug
think
has
Doug's
disappeared.
just
For a moment. I'm gonna hitch in on this one because I do like my mage ADCs, and Oleron's actually one of my favorite gods to play lately. I only picked him up in season 8, and he's not very good, decidedly, but he's a lot of fun. But I think what Oleron's strength was over all the other magical ADCs is he's not really a slow starter. You could fight into a lot of these hunters as Oleron, and it wasn't, early game especially, you weren't really outmatched, but it was late game where he tended to struggle. And I know the changes they've brought to him. His ultimate's still really strong, potentially really, really good. And obviously now they've reduced the overall cooldown of that. The max cooldown's still the same, but also having crowd control reduction just means that he can drop it and he's a lot safer in it. And I think you can see with his changes, obviously extra scaling on overflowing divinity, just sort of adding to his late game presence that he definitely needed, because of all the mage ADCs, he just wasn't all that strong later on. We do have Doug back in the room though, so if Apo, you want to throw your question out to him instead, he is available.
Obviously, with you being the ADC, Doug, I was just wondering, obviously, with Oleron getting buffed, Freya getting buffed, Kronos getting buffed, do you think we'll see a lot more like Mage ADCs?
Absolutely.
Maybe...
Yeah, Kronos is
Yeah.
one. Because the thing that kind of gave the hunters, especially like that little power spike, is the boots, I think. And I think now that you're free to flex the first items, I think the mages can get an earlier spike as well. Like you get your Freya lifesteal a lot more earlier, for example, which is kind of huge for Freya. Is what you're looking for. So I think that the mage ADCs now, that's what I also mentioned earlier with Soul, those pressure kind of characters, you can get spikes earlier. The spikes are spread differently in the game though, so it's not completely like just big spikes instantly, just spread a lot more. So the early spikes now are going to be a lot bigger for hunters especially, meaning that mage hunters or mage in the ADC role can get their spikes on earlier, which they can provide more damage earlier. So I think that's going to be a lot more useful now. So I think you can see a lot more Chronos and Freya and stuff like that. I mean, season 7, Freya was just stomping though. Like mid-season 7, she had this one little period where she was like just running through people. And then I figured it wasn't that good anymore. But it's definitely going to see a lot more mage ADCs now. Which
Do you
is
think
nice.
that'll then lead to a lot more hunter mids, or do you think it'll just be the double magical carries?
No, I think it's also one of the things that you cannot really predict. I think it's really hard to predict, but in my head though, it all comes down to the breakdown of the boots removal. What you're gonna what you can do and what you cannot do, and flex it in. I imagine you're playing like a Freya ADC now, You don't need to get those lifesteal boots on board before you actually start doing something. You can literally go straight into a lifesteal item with power, with 100 power. And for mids ADCs, you can get trans tier 2 and you don't even need to worry about boots. It's a lot more flex to do what you can do here. So it's I don't know which mage are gonna pop though. I think also Freya has that little slight Artemis feeling to her that she can be camped a lot. And it's gonna be rough for some of them. I think Kronos is gonna be the big thing. I think Kronos is honestly gonna be a top pick. Not even a top pick. I think it's just gonna be good because of the ultimate and the fact that you can get a lot pressure directed straight at you and then you can bait a lot of stuff and then you can ult back and stuff like this. I think that's gonna be good.
Hey there, I'm Caragold, one of the people whose voice you just listened to for an hour. When we recorded this first episode of the Smite Night podcast, we didn't expect it to go on for 2 hours, so what we've done is split it up into multiple episodes, the second of which you've just finished listening to. In episode 3, we'll talk about our debut season as a Smite Night Conquest League, how each of our players have found it, and what we're looking forward to in season 2. Thanks for listening.